Ohio State plays Penn State on Saturday at noon inside of Ohio Stadium, which is directional time. It's that corner, right?
Yeah.
Cool. That corner over there. We're in the Woody right now. We'll be over there on Saturday, though. I'm Steven, that's Stefan, and that's Andrew. And these are our game time decisions. These are the things that we want to see on Saturday that can decide the game. And we are 8 games in, and only once have they actually been about things that can decide the game. And I do not think this game correlates time number 2, given what Penn State has turned into. So, Andrew, what do you want to see from the Buckeyes on Saturday?
I want to see no sluggishness from the offense and from the defense coming out of a bye. You can't be groggy. You can't start slow, because we could talk about Penn State and, the talent that they have, but we're talking about Penn State in a unique way than maybe we thought we would a month and a half ago. Like, we're talking about Penn State like we talked about Minnesota, like we talked about Illinois, like maybe. But like, one of the things that we talked about was, like, with those games was like, what can Darius Taylor do to challenge Ohio State? And what can this guy do to challenge? We talked about this with Ohio, like Parker Navarro getting out of the pocket. What can we learn about the Buckeyes? Like, this is the most talented 3-4 team that I think Ohio State may ever play. This is the most talented 20-point underdog that Ohio State is going to play. I'm not saying Ohio State can, lose. I don't think they're going to. But you cannot invite the possibility of Penn State coming in here motivated after a disaster against Oregon, where they clearly just mentally broke. They go to UCLA, they go to Northwestern, their coach gets fired, all the players are tweeting out that they think it's their responsibility and they feel responsible for their coach getting fired, and all of this badness that's happened in the last month in State College. You cannot let them get out of the bye week with a fresh mentality and reset and come to Columbus with a belief system. You have to crush that quick, because this is a team that is mentally, emotionally, and maybe, and I guess literally with Drew Aller, physically not healthy right now. They are not in a good place right now. You cannot invite this possibility where it's 7-7 because Julian Sayin throws a pick that he shouldn't. Or it's 7-7 because you're doing what you did in the Cotton Bowl last year against Texas, where you're just committing penalty, and you're averaging 8 yards a play, but you're putting yourself behind the sticks, and you are letting Texas hang around. You cannot do that against a team like this, against Penn State, because Penn State, like, it's crazy to say this, but we thought UCLA was going to be the worst team in the FBS this year, and they got a little bit of confidence, and look what it did for them. They won 3 games in a row, and the juice eventually ran out, and they went back to where they were. But Penn State can make this a game that doesn't need to be a game if Ohio State doesn't do the right things early. So I think Ohio State kind of stepping on that throat early on can really just kind of put this thing to bed for Ohio State and the Buckeyes. And that, to me, is the most important thing. Ohio State cannot let Penn State linger, because then all of a sudden it's like, all right, it's 20-13 going into the fourth quarter. Ohio State's not playing well. You just don't want to invite that possibility, much like you don't want to invite that possibility against an Iowa, against an Illinois, against the Washington. You've got to put that foot on the throat early. Ohio State's starting fast. That's what I'm looking for.
Stefan, what do you want to see from the Bucks?
I don't think this is going to be a close game, so I'm going to cheat. And instead of saying what I want to see from the Buckeyes, I want to see Julian Sayin really put his foot on the Heisman campaign race. I think this is an opportunity for him on a big stage where I think Heisman voters know that Penn State is not a great team and, frankly, has not been a great defense, even though having, the highest paid assistant coach in college football as their defensive coordinator. But I do think that there is still something to playing on the stage where it's big new and it's still some level of brand recognition where people see Ohio State and Penn State and they're going to tune in. And if he balls out to the tune of 300-plus yards and 3+ touchdowns and it looks anything like it looked against Minnesota or Wisconsin or, going back to the preseason, Grambling, like, if the numbers are looking anything like that, Julian Sayin is firmly putting himself into this Heisman race down the stretch. He's already part of it, right? Mendoza's the betting favorite. And I think Sayin is, if he's not number 2, then he's number 3 behind Ty Simpson. So he's very much part of this conversation. And this stretch here with November is a really good opportunity for Sayin to firmly assert himself and maybe make himself the favorite in that discussion, right? Like, it starts here with Penn State. Obviously, it goes down to what he does against Michigan. And if Ohio State is going to be at its best against Michigan, I think this is where it really starts going. I think this is where we kind of see the offense start humming. We had, one of our texters, 614-350-3315, asked me this week, do you think we'll still see Ohio State kind of limit reps and try to take it easy and hold guys, make sure they're healthy, fully healthy for the playoff? And I wonder if November is when Ohio State says, hey, we've been doing that for 7 games, kind of the foot off the pedal. I wonder if this is when things start to really go for the Buckeyes. And I think that's going to help accelerate kind of this Heisman conversation for Julian Sand. If this offense is doing, fully what we think this offense is capable of week in and week out, starts against Penn State. So I'm keeping an eye on Julian Sand and what this offense does. And do we leave Ohio Stadium tonight saying to ourselves, that dude's the Heisman favorite, and as long as he beats Michigan, he might just win it.
I asked somebody, can Bo Jackson please get the ball 20 times on Saturday? And their reaction wasn't no because he's not good enough. It was, dude, we got to play in the playoff. And then I said, can I get 15? I said, that's the plan, baby. Now you're rocketing my world. Can I touch on your guys' point before I make my point?
Sure. I would be offended if you didn't.
Okay. I'm going to start with yours. I think Julian Sand's going to win the Heisman Trophy. I think Julian Sand is going to win the Heisman Trophy without ever at any point in the race being the leader for the race. Because you're not wrong, but none of this matters if he loses to Michigan. Yep. So it's one of those things where it's like, you're the leader, all right, and then you lost to Michigan. Like, it's just because I've seen the story before. You are right. I think I want to see Julian Sand like light a fire to Penn State. I think we all want to see that. I'm scarred by history of leaving Penn State games going, that's a quarterback who should be in the Heisman Trophy conversation, and then they get to Michigan, and you're like, never mind. So it's a hard thing to bargain with. It's a hard thing for me to get behind, even if it's true. Yours plays into what mine was going to be. Here are Ohio State's games after a bye week since Ryan Day took over in 2019. I have stats again. Northwestern in 2019, who was 1-4 at the time of that game, 52-3, so they won by 49 points. Maryland that same year was 3-6, 73-14. Stefan is laughing because he can see the full list and he can see how outrageous this is. 73-14 without Chase Young, by the way, 59-point win. Indiana in 2021 was 2-4, 54-7 on the road. Iowa in 2022, they actually did play a little sloppy to start off that game. It was a little weird. CJ got sacked because Donovan Jackson missed the block, and so Iowa scored on defense again. So it did start out a little bit weird, and it was funny because they didn't play well for a half, and they won 54-10, 44-point win. 2023, Maryland was 5-0. All that promise, 37-17. That was actually a game, if you remember. And then Josh Proctor had a pick six, and that was kind of it after that, right? So that's what Andrew was talking about, the Iowa game and the Maryland game. Last year, Marshall was 1-1, 49-14, 35-point win. Nebraska is really what you're talking about. 21-17, where it was a game in the fourth quarter. Do not do that. And then this year was the last one. Washington was 3-0. 24-6, they won that one by 18 points. So in total, coming off of byes, 364-88. They've outscored opponents 258 points, 45.5-11 is the scores. So 32.3 is what they are averaging scoring margin coming off of a bye. And there was a wide range of teams in there, right? There were bad teams, there were teams that were undefeated, there were teams in the hunt to win the Big Ten. So last year was the outlier. Good point. It was an outlier. Good point. Outlier still. Here's the thing I want to see and why I brought that up. If they keep up with that scoring margin and they win this game by 32 points, I've already started writing my buzzer story on a Wednesday, and it is literally, Dear College Football Playoff Committee, do not overthink this. This is the third straight year in a row where Ohio State is playing its last game before the first CFP rankings, and it's against Penn State. And every year, for 3 straight years, we're going to leave that game going, this is the number 1 team in the country. We know who number 1 is going to be. And then on Tuesday, Stefan, you and I are going to do a video where we go, as long as Ohio State takes care of business, they're going to be the number 1 seed in the playoff. And for the last 2 years, they have not done that exact thing. They have not taken care of business, so they were not the number 1 seed in the playoff. In 23, they got left out, Andrew. In 24, they got in because we expanded the field and they won a national championship. So literally, if they win by 32 points, don't underthink that. If they don't win by, let's just say like 28 or something like that. If they don't win in convincing fashion, I think you are opening yourself up to the way some national people have talked about Ohio State and that they haven't had a chance to play anybody. Indiana's resume is better. Texas A&M's resume is better. And you at least flirt with the possibility that somebody else is going to be the number 1 seed. Leave no doubt. who the best team in the country is, regardless of what schedules are.
Look at last year's game where Ohio State, Will Howard said it after the game, like, we probably should have been up like 28-3 in that game. And the reason why Penn State had a chance to tie it was because Will Howard threw a pick six, Will Howard fumbled through the back of the end zone. Like, those type of mistakes give a team like Penn State belief. It, like you said, it opens that up. You just avoid all that if you're Ohio State. Like, Ohio State does not want to invite the possibility of, man, like, again, if they played like they did against Nebraska last year, maybe they got, because I think Penn State is more talented than Nebraska. You get that belief system going.
Yeah,
like,
but
maybe.
Dylan Raiola is better than Ekin Grunkmeyer. This is not Penn State does. Every single person who covers Penn State, I've been talking to people, they just don't think Penn State has a shot. So even what you're talking about, Ohio State can lollygag through this game and they're going to win by 21 points. But that's not the point. It's not about lollygagging and winning the game. It's about literally what Ryan Day said last year was about leaving no doubt. So that's Heisman. That's not coming out sluggish. That's all of that. The first college football playoff rankings, don't let ESPN or any other national media even float the idea of maybe Indiana or Texas A&M should be the number one team in the country in those first rankings.
I think Ohio State will position itself to where if it takes care of business, it'll definitely be number one at the end of it. I don't think anything on Saturday. If they're not going to be the number one seed in the initial rankings, I don't even think a blowout against Penn State. If Ohio State's not number one in the initial rankings, I think the only reason would be because Indiana has a better win.
But when you don't look good, you allow somebody else's resume to that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, yeah, this resume is better, but like the eye test almost. And right now, Ohio State's entire resume, because of what the schedule has done and not turned out to be what we thought it was going to be, it is eye test. They have the ultimate eye test. Continue to have that ultimate eye test and win the way you're supposed to win. Get to text 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Go listen to Buckeye Talk wherever you find podcasts. We'll be potting after the game. We're going live on YouTube just like we do every single Wednesday. Ohio State, Penn State on Saturday. Steven, Stefan, Andrew, see ya.